A man can be brilliant in mind yet broken in will. He can speak of greatness with his lips while secretly bowing to chains in the dark. Lust is not merely a desire of the flesh, it is the fracture of the soul, the great divider that takes one heart and splits it in two. It whispers to you, you can have both. You can chase destiny while feeding your cravings. You can wear the crown in public and kiss the serpent in private. But every whisper carves a crack in the mirror of your mind. Soon the reflection staring back is no longer whole. This is the torment of double-mindedness, wanting heaven yet tasting hell, reaching for light while clutching shadows. And the danger is not only in what you do, but in who you become. A house divided cannot stand, a mind divided cannot see clearly, and a destiny divided cannot be fulfilled. Lust promises freedom but births slavery. It offers pleasure but robs focus. And while you think you are hiding it, it is rewriting your story, slowly, quietly, until the man you were meant to be no longer recognizes the man you've become. The fractured mirror. A mirror was designed to show truth. When you stand before it, you expect clarity, one reflection, one image. But lust is the hammer that strikes that mirror. It doesn't shatter it all at once. It cracks it slowly, carefully, until the reflection staring back at you is split into pieces. You are no longer whole. You are fragmented. This is what double-mindedness feels like. You think you are one person, but inside two selves are fighting for control. One wants purity, discipline, and destiny. The other craves indulgence, secrecy, and escape. And the tragedy is that both cannot coexist without tearing you apart. Scripture warns us, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. That instability is not accidental. It is born the moment lust enters the mind. Suddenly, decisions that should be clear become clouded. Commitments that should be strong begin to weaken. Dreams that once burned like fire turn into smoke. Imagine a general commanding an army with two voices in his head. One voice says advance. The other whispers retreat. His soldiers hesitate. His camp falls into confusion. And soon the enemy seizes victory. That is your mind under the grip of lust, torn between advancing toward destiny and retreating into temptation. History is full of kings and warriors destroyed, not by armies stronger than theirs, but by weaknesses within. Samson had strength no man could match, but a divided heart led him to Delilah, and the mighty became a prisoner. David was a man after God's own heart, yet lust fractured his vision, and the sword never left his house. Greatness undone by division. The fractured mirror is dangerous because it lies to you. It makes you think you can live double lives, strong in the light, weak in the dark, but the cracks always spread. The same mind you use to pray is the mind you use to imagine corruption. The same hands you lift to build your future are the hands you use to tear it down. Lust doesn't ask for all of you at once. It simply asks for permission to divide you, to place one part of you in pursuit of God, and another in pursuit of shadows. But divided focus is destroyed focus, and the man who cannot decide which master he serves will always end up serving the wrong one. The fractured mirror teaches us this. Clarity is power. If your reflection is whole, your path is steady. But if your reflection is split, every step is unstable. And lust is the unseen hand behind that fracture, ensuring you walk through life with a broken map, always stumbling, never arrive. So the question becomes, will you let lust keep shattering the mirror of your soul? Or will you demand wholeness, one mind, one heart, one reflection? Because destiny is not given to divided men. Destiny belongs to the single mind. The whispering shadow. Lust does not storm the gates with fire and armies. It does not announce its arrival with trumpets or banners. It comes as a shadow, soft, patient, invisible. It waits at the edge of your thoughts, whispering, not loud enough to be obvious, not strong enough to force you, but consistent enough to wear you down. This is why lust is more dangerous than open enemies. Open enemies you can see, you can fight, you can resist. But a whisper in your own mind, how do you fight that? A whisper that says, it's only once, nobody will know, you can balance both worlds. That is the subtlety of lust. It doesn't immediately demand you abandon your faith, your family, your vision. It simply asks you to split your attention, to lend it a corner of your imagination. And once it is imagination, it begins to plant pictures, scenarios, desires. Neville Goddard once said, what you imagine hardens into fact. That is the divine power of the mind. But when lust hijacks imagination, it turns creativity into corruption, and possibility into poison. The whispering shadow fogs clarity. Where there was once sharp vision, there is now confusion. Where there was once confidence, there is hesitation. Lust thrives in fog because clarity exposes it. The more you feed the whispers, the thicker the fog grows, and soon the voice of God in your life begins to sound faint, drowned beneath the steady hum of desire. Consider this: a king who trusts the wrong advisor loses his throne, not because he lacked power, but because he listened to the wrong voice. That is how lust operates. It becomes an advisor in your court, whispering in your ear, steering you toward decisions you would never have made with a clear mind. It disguises itself as freedom. Indulge, it says, because you deserve it. But freedom without discipline is slavery in disguise. Lust dresses chains in velvet, so they feel comfortable as they bind you. You think you are free, but you are only serving another master. The whispering shadow never yells. It doesn't need to. It only needs your permission. Once you give it space, it builds a nest, and from that nest, it hatches thought after thought, until your imagination becomes its playground. You think you are in control, but it is now writing the script of your inner world. And this is the truth. The man who loses control of his imagination loses control of his destiny. For destiny is first seen within before it is lived without. If the shadow owns your inner world, it will dictate your outer future. The only way to silence the whisper is to flood the mind with light, so intense that shadows cannot exist. To train imagination toward destiny, not desire. For the whispering shadow is powerless against a mind that refuses to lend it attention. The forbidden has always carried a strange weight in the human heart. It is not always the beauty of the thing itself that tempts us, but the very fact that it is denied. Lust thrives in this territory, feeding off the thrill of crossing lines we were never meant to touch. It began in Eve. Adam and Eve were surrounded by abundance. Every tree, every fruit, every blessing freely theirs. Yet the serpent drew their eyes to the one tree they were told not to touch, not because it was more beautiful than the others, but because it was forbidden. That single command became a magnet for desire. The fruit promised wisdom, but delivered death. That moment was the prototype of double-mindedness, desiring both obedience to God and rebellion against Him in the same breath. Lust operates with the same strategy. It makes you crave not simply what is pleasurable, but what is out of bounds. The thrill of secrecy, the rush of rebellion, the taste of danger. It is addictive, and like all addictions, the first taste feels like freedom, but every taste after feels like change. Rome fell not because its armies grew weak, but because its people became addicted to indulgence. The empire's strength rotted from within. Bread and circuses numbed their discipline, until their enemies walked through the gates, almost unchallenged. The addiction to forbidden pleasures always weakens a people before it destroys them. The same happens in the soul. At first the forbidden feels like a harmless indulgence, but soon it rewires the brain, building patterns, carving ruts in the mind until desire becomes demand. You don't choose lust anymore. Lust chooses you. You don't command your thoughts. They command you. This is why lust is not simply sin, but slavery. A man who cannot say no to his impulses has already surrendered his crown. He is not a ruler of himself, but a prisoner disguised as free. The forbidden always promises fulfillment, but its harvest is emptiness. It is like drinking salt water in the desert. With every swallow you think you are quenching your thirst, but the salt only makes you thirstier. Lust offers pleasure, but leaves you restless. It promises relief, but delivers shame. And the more you chase it, the less satisfied you become. That is the nature of forbidden fire. It burns brighter at first, but it always consumes the one who holds it. The addiction to the forbidden is what births double-mindedness. You say you want purity, but in the secret corners of your heart, you still flirt with the serpent. You say you want destiny, but you still taste the fruit that blinds you to it. You cannot walk straight while your eyes are on both the path and the shadow. And until you recognize that the forbidden is not food but poison, not pleasure but a snare, you will continue to trade destiny for deception. The addiction will own you, unless you break it before it breaks you. The fog of compromise. The most dangerous prisons are not the ones with iron bars. They are the ones we justify. The chains we call choices. The cages we decorate until they feel like home. Lust thrives in this silent fog of compromise, where you convince yourself that your captivity is freedom. The fog begins lightly. It's only once. It doesn't define me. I can still serve God while serving this craving. These are the whispers that cloud the vision, blurring right and wrong until everything feels gray. But gray is the devil's favorite color. In the gray you lose the sharpness of conviction. You lose the clarity of purpose. And a man without clarity will eventually stumble, not because he is weak, but because he cannot see. Compromise is half light, half darkness. It is the twilight of the soul, where you walk with one foot in the kingdom and the other in the shadows. But here lies the tragedy. Twilight never lasts. You are either moving toward the dawn or sinking into the night. There is no standing still. Hypocrisy is born in this fog. You say one thing with your lips, but live another with your habits. You speak about destiny while secretly feeding destruction. You lift your hands in public, but in private, you bow to shadows. Jesus said it clearly, you cannot serve two masters, yet compromise tries to prove him wrong, and it always fails. Think of a sailor with two maps. One points north, the other south. No matter how skilled he is, no matter how strong his ship, if he tries to follow both maps, he will end up lost at sea. This is the soul in compromise, torn between two truths, but loyal to neither. The fog also numbs you. At first sin stings. At first lust burns with guilt. But the more you compromise, the less you feel. Soon what once grieved your spirit now feels normal. What once broke your heart now feels routine. Compromise does not only blind, it desensitizes. And a man who cannot feel his wounds will never heal them. Look at history's fallen men, and you will see this pattern. Not sudden collapse, but gradual erosion. Not a single blow, but 1,000 small compromises that weakened the foundation until the house came crashing down. The fog of compromise is where double-mindedness thrives, because you are neither fully surrendered nor fully rebellious. You are divided, torn, unstable, and instability is death to destiny. To escape this fog you must choose. You cannot bargain with shadows, for shadows never stop taking. You cannot negotiate with chains, for chains never stop tightening. Only a radical decision, a full turning toward the light, can cut through the haze. The truth is simple but severe. Compromise may feel harmless now, but it is quietly writing your downfall. The longer you breathe its fog, the less you will recognize yourself, until one day, the man in the mirror is not who you were meant to be. If this message has cut deep into your soul, then understand this: the battle against lust cannot be fought with willpower alone. It requires weapons forged in truth. That's why I created 7 biblical secrets to destroy lust before it destroys you. Inside you'll discover strategies hidden in scripture that will break chains, silence whispers, and restore clarity to your life. Don't delay. Every moment wasted feeds the enemy. The link is waiting in the description and in the pinned comment. Click it now, take up your weapon, and claim the freedom and destiny that belong to you. The collapse of authority. Authority is not just about commanding others. True authority begins with ruling yourself, your thoughts, your impulses, your desire. A man who cannot govern his own appetites will one day be governed by them. And lust is the silent rebellion that strips you of this throne. The collapse of authority does not happen overnight. It begins in secret. The moment you choose indulgence over integrity, you hand over a piece of your crown. Slowly the ruler becomes the prisoner. The king becomes the servant. The leader becomes led. And though outwardly you may still appear strong, inwardly the foundation is cracking. History remembers men not only for their victories, but for their weaknesses. Samson's strength was unmatched, but lust made him blind long before his enemies gouged out his eyes. David's courage slew giants, but lust shattered his house with betrayal and bloodshed. Greatness undone not by the sword of the enemy, but by the whisper of desire. This is the danger of double-mindedness. You cannot lead others if you cannot lead yourself. You cannot command respect while secretly bowing to craving. Authority collapses when your private world contradicts your public image. And once authority collapses, influence becomes hollow. People may follow your words, but they will not trust your life. Think of a general in battle. His soldiers look to him for confidence, for clarity, for certainty. But what happens if his heart is divided? His orders waver. His vision falters. His army senses his hesitation. The enemy seizes the moment, and defeat follows. That is what lust does. It divides the commander within you until the war is lost before it is even fought. And this collapse is not limited to leaders of nations. It touches fathers who cannot guide their sons, pastors who cannot live their sermons, men who cannot uphold their vows. Authority collapses first in the private chambers of the heart, long before it is seen in the public eye. Lust steals destiny in small exchanges. One glance for one moment of clarity, one indulgence for one measure of strength, until the account is emptied and the crown lies in the dust. The tragedy is not just personal, it is generational. When authority collapses in you, the weight falls on those who follow you. Esau sold his birthright for a single meal. That is the essence of lust, trading eternal authority for temporary appetite. And once the trade is made, regret cannot reclaim it. To preserve authority, you must master yourself. You must refuse to be divided, refuse to live in contradiction, refuse to bow to impulses dressed as freedom. For the man who rules his spirit is greater than the man who conquers a city. Authority is not lost in one grand betrayal, but in 1,000 small surrenders. And when lust reigns, destiny falls. The silent theft of destiny. Destiny is not stolen with violence. It is stolen silently, like a thief in the night, and lust is that thief. It doesn't rip the crown from your head in a single blow. It drains you slowly, unseen, until the day you awaken and realize the fire has gone out, the vision is blurred, and the strength you once carried has slipped through your fingers. Destiny requires focus. Focus is the currency of greatness, but lust scatters focus, breaking it into fragments until your mind, once sharp as a sword, becomes dull as dust. Your thoughts wander where your purpose cannot follow. The hours you were meant to build are wasted in indulgence. The energy you were given for creation is consumed in secrecy. The future you were designed to shape is quietly eroded by the present you refuse to discipline. Think of your mind as a fortress, strong walls, high towers, guarded gates. But lust does not attack with battering rams. It sneaks in through the unguarded cracks. A whisper here, an image there. Soon the gates are neglected, the guards distracted, and the fortress lies open, not destroyed but disarmed. That is how lust steals destiny, not by force, but by distraction. Demons do not need to kill a man if they can keep him unfocused. They do not need to strip him of talent if they can scatter his attention. They do not need to take his birthright if they can convince him to sell it for moments of pleasure. What they cannot steal, they distract away. Look at men with brilliance, gifts and opportunities who never rose to their calling, not because they lacked ability, but because they lacked focus. Lust stole their energy, drained their confidence, and rewrote their priorities. They traded the eternal for the immediate, the possible for the pleasurable, the crown for crumbs. This theft is silent because it feels harmless. A little indulgence, a brief escape, a moment's satisfaction. But every moment surrendered is a brick removed from the foundation of destiny. Slowly, quietly, until collapse is inevitable. The worst tragedy is not death, but wasted life. A man who lives 70 years but never walks in his destiny is a man whose crown was stolen long before his time. And lust is one of the greatest thieves of crowns. Your destiny cannot thrive in a divided heart. Your purpose cannot shine through fogged eyes. The silent theft of destiny is the price of double-mindedness, and lust is the hand that collects the payment. If you would protect your destiny, you must guard your focus as fiercely as a king guards his throne. For the man who gives his attention to shadows will always lose his crown to them. Destiny does not belong to the distracted. It belongs to the single-minded, to those who refuse to let lust steal what heaven designed. The awakening of the warrior. There comes a point when the fog lifts, when the whispers lose their grip, when the man staring into the fractured mirror realizes he was not born to crawl but to stand. This is the awakening of the warrior. It is not soft, it is not gentle, it is the violent shaking of the soul that refuses to be divided any longer. Purity is not repression, it is liberation. It is the reclaiming of strength that lust tried to bury. For every indulgence weakens, but every act of discipline sharpens. The warrior does not despise the battle, because he knows that without resistance, strength cannot be born. And lust is the battlefield where the warrior must prove himself. The awakening begins with a decision. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when it feels convenient. A line is drawn in the sand, And the warrior says no more. No more divided vision. No more fractured will. No more bowing to cravings disguised as freedom. It is the moment when the sword of clarity is raised against the fog of desire. Imagine light focused through a lens. Scattered it warms, but cannot cut. Focused, it becomes a laser capable of piercing steel. That is the power of single-mindedness. When the warrior directs every ounce of his mind, body, and spirit toward destiny, no shadow can withstand him. Weakness is not the absence of strength, but the surrender of focus. Lust thrives on scattering a man, dividing him into fragments, but the warrior gathers himself back into one vision, one purpose, one allegiance, and in that unity he becomes unstoppable. The awakening is not only about personal victory, it is about reclaiming authority. A man who conquers his lust becomes a man who can be trusted with greater battle. He can lead, he can build, he can create, because his inner world is no longer a battlefield of contradiction. His authority is restored because his integrity is whole. Consider this: the warrior who sharpens his sword daily is feared not for his weapon, but for his discipline. It is the hidden life, the unseen training, the private victories that prepare him for public triumphs. In the same way, the battle against lust is not just about avoiding failure. It is about forging strength that will shape destiny. When the warrior awakens, he no longer sees lust as an irresistible master, but as a weak enemy, a shadow with no substance, a chain with no power except the power he once gave it. And when he sees it for what it truly is, he stands taller, fights harder, and walks free. The awakening of the warrior is the beginning of restoration. It is the breaking of double-mindedness, the healing of the fractured mirror, the return of clarity. And when that clarity burns, it becomes fire. A fire that not only consumes lust but fuels destiny. The crown of purity. Every battle points to this moment, the restoration of the crown. Purity is not a restriction. It is authority. Clarity and strength return to its rightful place. It is the crown worn by those who have refused to live divided, those who chose one master, one vision, one destiny. Lust promises crowns but delivers chains. Purity feels costly, but it delivers crowns. When a man purges himself of divided loyalties, his spirit rises with a dignity no shadow can counterfeit. His eyes see clearly, his voice carries weight, his presence commands respect, not because he forces it, but because he has earned it. Authority restored from the inside out. C.S.LEWIS once said that lust is a weak substitute for the real thing. It is not intimacy. It is illusion. It is not fulfillment. It is a mirage. But when a man throws down illusion and embraces purity, he discovers the strength that only comes from alignment with truth. He no longer chases shadows. He walks in light. The crown of purity is the crown of focus. It is the reward of single-mindedness. It is the fire of a man whose imagination no longer serves cravings, but creates worlds, builds futures, shapes generations. The same energy once wasted in secrecy is now invested in destiny. The same passion once scattered is now harnessed, like lightning, destructive in the wrong hands, but unstoppable in the right. And this crown does not shine only for the man who wears it. It lights the path for others. A father who breaks free sets his sons free. A leader who walks in purity builds armies of integrity. A chosen one who refuses lust becomes a lighthouse for the lost. The crown of purity carries generational weight, but it must be chosen. Purity is not given. It is fought for, bled for, won in the private chambers of the heart. Every no to lust is a jewel in the crown. Every act of discipline is gold melted and forged into authority. Every victory in secret is a coronation unseen by men but honored by heaven. The final stand is simple yet severe. You cannot serve both desire and destiny. You cannot bow to shadows and expect to walk in light. At some point you must choose, and when you do, when you burn the bridges of compromise and silence the whispering shadows, the fractured mirror heals. The man in the reflection becomes whole again. The crown of purity is not about perfection. It is about alignment. It is the power of one mind, one heart, one allegiance. And when you wear it, you no longer stumble in double-mindedness. You walk in clarity. You walk in authority. You walk in destiny. One mind, one heart, one destiny. That is the crown. That is the victory. That is the man lust could not break. Destiny does not slip away in one violent moment. It erodes in silence, with every whisper entertained, every compromise excused, every craving obeyed. And the greatest tragedy is not the strength of lust. It is the weakness of a divided man. For as long as you are torn between two masters, you will never stand in the fullness of your calling. But hear this truth. You are not destined to remain fractured. You are not designed to crawl beneath chains, but to rise with clarity, with authority, with fire. Every shadow can be broken. Every whisper can be silenced. Every compromise can be cut away. What lust stole does not have to remain stolen. You can rebuild. You can restore. You can reclaim the throne of your own soul. This battle is not about repression. It is about freedom. Freedom to dream without distraction. Freedom to walk in destiny without change. Freedom to look in the mirror and see one reflection whole, strong, unshaken. And that freedom requires more than hope. It requires strategy, wisdom, and weapons forged in truth. That is why I created something for you. 7 biblical secrets to destroy lust before it destroys you. It is not theory. It is a battle plan. It is a roadmap built from scripture, sharpened with insight, and designed to help you cut through the fog, silence the whispers, and walk in the clarity of destiny. If this message has stirred you, if you feel the weight of this war and know it's time to rise, then don't wait. Go now to the description, click the link, take hold of this weapon before another day slips into compromise. The enemy wants delay, but destiny demands decision. Your future self will thank you for the choice you make today. One mind, one heart, one destiny. The crown is waiting now. It's your turn to claim.